Hello friends, and welcome to another edition of Transformational Astrology. I'm Henry Seltzer, and we want to talk about this upcoming new moon, which is on Tuesday evening here on the West Coast. It'll be later and later as we get further east, early morning Wednesday if you're in Europe or points east. And the reason we want to talk about this new moon is because the new moon charts have something to do with the next 30 days. You know, we say that this is the cycle of the new moon and that what's in the new moon chart has some effect, a measurable effect on the kind of month in the sense of that lunar period, lunar lunation period of 30 days. So let's take a look at the chart and see what we got here. Now I would like to comment on several features of this chart, and probably the most interesting initially is the fact that this T-square is very much alive that we've been talking about with Eris, which is right here, opposite Haumea, which is right here, a new planet called Haumea, which has to do with nature, profound connection to nature, and with natural law. These two planets are both new, but they're being opposed to each other, and they're also perfect T-square. And if you look at the position of the Saturn and the Pluto, 26-22, we're talking about a 24-degree midpoint, 24 degrees in about 40-50 minutes. Well, 24 degrees and a half is the position of Eris, and we also have, you see, Mars coming in at 24 degrees, 54 minutes. It's a little bit past the exact point of conjunction. So Mars with Eris in this new moon configuration, with the Sun and Moon at 26 degrees of Leo, matching exactly the degree of Saturn in Capricorn. It's not an opposition, it is an inconjunct or quincunx 150-degree aspect. This is a very active chart. Active in the sense of emphasizing Saturn-Pluto, and then Jupiter is going to join them by the end of the year. By around the middle of November, it'll be very intense triple conjunction of these three. So what do we have with Saturn-Pluto? You know, at the beginning of the year, as I've said many times before, pretty much every new moon I say, it was Saturn-Pluto exact on an eclipse around January 10th, and that was just when COVID-19 was officially named as a pandemic, potential pandemic disease. So I associate Saturn-Pluto with the pandemic, especially when you consider that Saturn and Pluto in combination does indicate a societal shift of a rather dire direction. You could say, because Saturn is structure, the structure of the society, you could say Saturn with Pluto is a radical reformation or restructuring of the society, which is what we're seeing with this whole COVID situation. And not only that, I think it's quite interesting to note that as this T-square has formed, which has been in the last couple of months, my first notification that the COVID situation was getting worse was around May or June when I saw this coming up for June, late June, July, and I said, oh my gosh, it looks like if we associate Saturn-Pluto with the COVID situation, we are in for more of it, more of the intensity of it, and certainly we've seen that, especially in this country, not so much around the world, although there are outbreaks around the world. So there's different relative situations to deal with around the world. Even New Zealand had a shutdown because they had a 49 count or something like that. Of course, we have 1,000 a day of new cases, and we have 160,000 in the United States, I believe it is, which will go up higher of deaths. So this is a bad situation. It is a time for everybody to take individual responsibility to wear a mask. I have my mask right over there. And it's also a time when, because we see that Eris is involved, Eris being a feminine warrior energy for what comes from only deep inside you, a feminine warrior or a spiritual warrior in support of soul intention. So the question becomes, what is my deepest intention? What are my deepest values? What do I have to stand up for? What is it that I cannot not do? And that's the question that comes up with Eris, which is very highlighted in this new moon, as you can see, by the fact that right there we have Mars as well. Mars ruling Aries, where Eris resides, Mars being about action, taking action. What action do you take? And that's the question. Do you follow the herd? Do you do what everybody does? Do you do what everybody says to do? Or do you rebel and say, well, I'm not going to wear a mask? And the thing is, when you take that action, you have to check in with yourself. You have to see what is the fundamental action that I need to take, that I have the will to take, that I understand is in the best interest of everybody to take. Because it's not just any old thing. If I decide, well, what I feel like doing today is killing a few people, that doesn't work out very well. It's not the right action for your life at that moment, even though it may seem like it. Or there are other ones too. Anger is another possibility with a prominent Mars. And we always know that when we get angry, it's not always for the reason that we think it is. You know, there's a triggering event, and we say, you made me so angry. But really, anger comes from within each one of us. And we recognize that, and we have a more mature attitude towards our own anger, towards what, which could come from a situation in the past. Usually it's early childhood stuff that comes up. And we also recognize that we're all in this together. We're in the same boat. It's a great truth that the world is one family. And I heard this man talking about it, giving a Dharma talk at Bhakti Fest, which was online, and he was saying, which I thought was very profound, he was saying, not only is the human race one family, but the creatures of the earth, the world itself, the streams and the rivers and the trees and the mountains, and the creatures of it, our natural brethren of creatures, and the whole entire species of mankind. It's all one family. And when we recognize that, we're ahead of the game, because we finally get to the point where we see that our actions affect everybody, that it all comes back. Whatever you do comes back to you, right? And so we take the appropriate action, and it is not destructive, and it is not to expose other people to a potential COVID infection that I might not even know I have. It is to protect other people from my own sneezes, my own out-breath. It is to protect the society, to protect the children, to make sure everybody gets fed and clothed, to take care of each other as though we're one family, as though we were taking care of our own children, our own parents. So that's where the basic truth comes, and I think it's a truth we've all recognized at one time or another. We just don't know if we have the will to achieve it. We don't know if we have the capacity to make that happen in a dog-eat-dog world, as they say, but we have to, because that's the only way forward. That's the way we're going to get through this. Not only this COVID situation, but we're going to be able to create a new society that is based on where we're at as a species right now, where we're at in this 21st century time, which is a different place than we were at in the 1500s or in the 1600s or in the 1800s or even in the 1900s. We are in a different place. And we have to recognize that, and we have to move forward into a new way of being, which I'm very happy to hear some of the presidential nominees are talking about moving forward in a way that we rebuild in a way that is better. There's a lot of things we could do better, right? And maybe climate change is one of them. We pay attention to climate change, which is coming down. So these are liberal viewpoints that I hold. And I don't want to denigrate anybody's philosophy or their political party or persuasion. Whatever it is that you most deeply believe in, whatever that might be, act upon that. Come to that position of your own authority. Make sure you check in with yourself. Make sure it's the right thing to do. And then go ahead and do it. So that's the message of Eris. The message of Eris in particular with Haumea oppose, which is the concept of natural law, the concept of nature as a spiritual path. And in this T-square, it's so perfect with the midpoint of Saturn-Pluto on the 24.5 degree mark as well. So it's very tight here. Very, it tells me that we're still in for it this remainder of this month, and then next month on September 9th, Mars will turn retrograde at 28 degrees and start going back towards Eris again. So all of this has to be taken into account as we move forward, that we are in the midst of massive change, and that it's very important that we recognize that. Well, and not only that, we do also have in this configuration a pretty strong, the fact that Uranus is changing direction. It's about, if we right-click on it in the time passages software, we can see January 14th, 2021. That's the next station. It did. We can't right-click on it unless we look at a previous. We can go back to the full moon, and we can right-click on Uranus, and it tells us the next station. and the next station being August 15th. So in other words, that is just transpired by the timing of this new moon. So we are looking at a very slowly moving Uranus, which is just stationed, and it is powerful in that regard, and it is at the 10-degree Taurus mark, which is sextile, perfect sextile to Venus. So that is something to think about as well, that we have Uranus and Venus. Uranus is great for intuition, tuning into what we really know without knowing how we know it. With Venus involved, there's a lot of relationship with Mars prominent and with Venus prominent. There's a lot of relationship stuff here, and once again, we are committed and enjoined to the possibility of right relationship. How can we best be with our fellow person, be with our special person, our one person, and be with our friends and our associates and all of our relatives, all of our relations, which is everybody. And so that is the message of these times. We have to kind of seize the day, seize the moment. And we do have, as I say, this very strong position of the sun and moon, also in perfect angle to Saturn itself, therefore illuminating again the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We have a 26-degree mark in Libra of Haumea, exactly square to the Saturn. So there's a lot of Saturn in this picture. That means don't expect things to go quickly. We always have to take Saturn into account when we're remembering that the water in the ditch, if it's racing along, it does not get absorbed by the dirt. Water has to move slowly in an irrigation ditch in order to do its nutritive effects, in order to sink in. And so we have to move slowly and get it right. Make haste slowly, as they say. And that is what we're up to, and that is what the message is of this new moon. I've been giving this message again and again, I feel, really pretty much every new moon, but it's very strong, and this one, it's very strong in all the new moons coming up till the end of the year. November 15th is a big one. I think November is going to be a giant mess, because I think COVID will be more pronounced with the colder weather, they say, and also with the flu season, and also we may have the transition. We may see that being a difficult time. So we are in the midst of it, and we just have to keep our heads up and remember that we are powerful as a group. Just take this nation as this national population. We are quite powerful. We are the reason that our leaders are in office, because they are there to do the will of the people, whatever that may be in a democracy. The will of the people counts. So we all have that tremendous power in our hands, and we just need to recognize that, have an optimistic viewpoint, and start to use it. So that's really all I've got to say right now. This is a short one. I think it's just time to act rather than talk. It's time to dig in. Don't expect it to go smooth or easy, but it will go. Have a great week. Have a great couple of weeks. Talk to you later. Bye now.